Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Eric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
My name's Lexi and I've always been the most responsible.
My name's Carter and I like picking on my siblings.
My name's Chase and I love a clean truck.
My name's Summer and I still like to spend my parents' money.
My name's Dane and I love baseball.
And around here, we talk about the real stuff. Parenting, marriage, faith.
Along with grief, growth, second chances, and blended family life.
And all the in-between moments that don't make it to Instagram.
Our podcast is for the couples figuring it out, the parents trying their best, and the ones holding faith and heartbreak in the same hand.
Look, we don't have it all together.
Not even close.
But we do have honesty.
And a whole lot of grace.
This is Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess.
Let's get into it.
This episode is brought to you by Sevens Boutique, an online shop created by 2 sisters, Angie and Jess, who believe you should walk boldly, dress divinely, and know your significance. At Sevens, you'll find easygoing pieces that are cozy, classy, and made to mix and match. Think relaxed pants, cozy sweaters, and lifestyle sets you'll want to live in. Every item is handpicked with purpose, so you can shop confidently, dress comfortably, and walk boldly. Inventory is small and curated, so if you see something you love, don't wait. Visit sevensboutique.com and use the code PODCAST10 for 10% off your first order. www.sevensboutique.com. Walk boldly, dress divinely, know your significance.
Welcome to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess, where I'm excited because Angie's really going to take us through her last weekend. We talked to Sarah from London in our last episode about grief, and she's part of the grief group that Angie had created. And really, right after that, right after we recorded that, a bunch of those women had just a beautiful weekend together. And so I wanted you to be able to share with our listeners a little bit about that weekend. And by a little bit, I guess I should say a lot of it about what happened last weekend.
Yeah, well, before we dive into that, I just want to share how chaotic our lives are. So it is Thursday night. I just got out of Pilates class. I try to do Pilates on the reformer, I don't know, twice a month just to switch it up. And we have an hour window. So I hurried and came home. And then Eric is going to run to Dane's game at 6. And then the rest of the evening, which it's very rare.
It's an hour away, Dane's game. So I have to drive an hour.
Yeah. It's really rare that I'll get a couple hours to myself. So we're going to hurry and record this, and he's going to go to the game, and then I'm going to take a bath, go tan, maybe sit in the sauna. It's going to be a couple hours of Angie time. It's been kind of a rough week. It's been blah. Tomorrow's our 5-year wedding anniversary, and it just makes me teary-eyed because it was such a freaking great day.
And I think the happiest one, we've said this before, the happiest one of everybody that day was Hallie. So to celebrate our anniversaries without her moving forward is just hard.
So hard.
I'm grateful for you. And I wouldn't trade that. I wouldn't trade our 5 years of marriage, but I sure wish we had Hallie to do life with.
Yeah, because I think and there's a whole nother podcast we'll record about that. But I think the difference is it's not really a wedding anniversary like between you and I. It was about us bringing our family together. That's why I need a night to myself so I can go cry my eyes out and get it all out. Anyway, but that's not the topic of of this podcast. But it is the reason why we did the weekend, because I connected with, there's 7 moms total that could get together, but really our connection is because we've all lost kids. And I started this group probably a year ago.
Feels like feels like a year and a half ago.
Probably. I think our first meeting was in February, and that was also intentional because winter's hard. It's, for everybody, I feel like winter's hard. We run on sunshine, most of us. And so you have a lot of winter blues and all of that stuff. So we started meeting in February, and I mapped out a topic for each month. And that was it. It was going to be 6 meetings, and we'll just see how it goes. But I wanted to have a very specific topic to drive the conversation. So we did that. And then the group wanted to keep meeting. So then we just really met. We try to do monthly and just get on a Zoom call and talk. So free form. And I think that's where a lot of the relationships really really took off. And then it was like, we want to meet in person.
Can we just clarify real quick for our listeners? I know a couple of the moms you met locally, but a lot of these moms, since they're all over, they find us through the podcast, through your grief journey?
Yes. I mean, actually, everybody has connected with me through my social media, through just us sharing our story, with the exception of Tanya, because there was a connection with her and her son and my best friend. So like, I knew when that happened and I reached out to her to sit with her, but everybody else, we just sort of connected on social media.
So that's where I think that social media, it can get a bad rap because there are a lot of bad things can happen with social media, but there can also be when things are working at their best. And in this scenario, social media was able to connect these grieving mothers.
And it's the power of sharing your story. If I hadn't shared about what had happened in our loss, and really even just starting at the beginning of us just sharing about our blended family, the connections wouldn't have happened. On the flip side, the moms that have connected with me when we talked about getting together and traveling to my house for the weekend, I'm sure probably some of their friends were like, where are you going? And the answer would be like, well, I met these people online. I mean, that is so sketch. I mean, would you think about it? Like if I said, I'm going to go meet these moms, I'm going to fly to another state and meet moms that I have never met with in person, but I met them online. You'd probably be like,
it seems a
wow,
little weird,
okay,
but not to the same degree. But you might remember that Angie and I met because she friended me on Facebook online, but again,
so we have a history.
Yeah. So social media can work in good ways, but yeah, you had met some of the, one of the moms that couldn't make it from Texas, we met for coffee once when we were all down in Florida at the same time. And you had driven to Nebraska to meet with one of the moms for her other daughter's wedding about a year ago. And so there had been connection points along the way, which I think makes it a little easier. Now, Sarah from London, we can't, that is what it is. She had other friends here. Let's use that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I would say, too, when you have walked through this type of loss with your kids, you're really not looking for convenience. I mean, you're looking for deep connection.
I remember driving to Hallie's house with your mom and dad and you saying, I want to create something. I want to build something. And coming up with this broken and beautiful idea. And like you do when you come up with ideas, whether that's writing a book or whatever, you run with it.
Yeah. And, the weekend was kind of unstructured. It was more about space and connection and not needing to fix anything, didn't need to have the right words. Like I knew their grief and they knew mine. And so it was all about just coming together and spending a weekend, just hanging out, just being with each other. And a few of us met up that were going to be around Thursday night. We met up and went to dinner. Angie, the Nebraska mom, she lives close to the Wyoming border. The best way to get here is like a 12-hour drive. So she split it up, much like I split it up when I went to her daughter's wedding. But she ran into heavy traffic, bad accident. She was supposed to get here on Thursday at 3 p.m. She didn't get here till 9 p.m. Thursday night. So that part was a little bit of a bummer, but we were definitely up and waiting for her and meet her when she got here after her long day. And then Friday morning, we got up and it's like slow morning, go for a walk. We drank coffee. I made my waffles that everybody loves, my protein waffles. And then we went to go pick up Karen from the Columbia airport. She flew in from Texas. And then Friday night was so special because my mom has made these bears for a lot of the moms in my group that are made out of their kids' clothes. And it's just, they're freaking special.
They really are.
They're just the perfect size. Originally I had a lady make bears for me out of Hallie's jeans. And then that lady paid it forward and showed us how to make the bears. And then my mom just started this mission around making bears for families that sort of come to me in some aspects, and also just, our other family connection with people that have lost kids or parents. I mean, it really could be about anything, but
I would just say most nights our kids still sleep with their bears. I sleep with my Hallie bear, and I asked Angie this week, "Oh, you ever kiss your Hallie bear?" And she's no, but I will kiss mine on the forehead, tell it I love you, say I love you, Hal, like when I'm I don't know, weird maybe, but it brings comfort. And that's what Alice has
So it
tried to do
matters.
for all these moms.
Yeah. So she also, speaking of comfort, brought comfort food. And so she brought her fried chicken and her coconut cream pie. And so all the mamas enjoyed that. And just to meet my mom and dad, because again, they all listen to our podcast and just, you get to know people even virtually like that. And so it was awesome for them to all connect. And then my mom had made 5 bears, I think, for Karen. And Karen, her story is so sad. She lost both of her adult daughters 5 days apart. I mean, I can't even imagine it. So she's lost both her daughters, and now she's got these beautiful granddaughters that are all going through life, big moments like graduating from high school, college, weddings, all of this stuff. And then I also fill this role of being a mom to them. It was just so incredibly sad, but just the whole weekend, though, I would say was like love in action. And I think also sometimes people think, oh, you're going to get together and you're going to sit around and cry. Like, why would you want to do that? We did not sit around and cry. Obviously, we had tears because as you get together and sit in connection, layers are peeled back and you learn more about people's stories that you wouldn't get on an hour and a half Zoom call once a month. And so there's just like a deeper connection and lots of laughs. Like, these mamas are great mamas. They are funny. They have so many stories, and it was so joy-filled, I would say.
Yeah, I was trying to be in and out of the house because most of the activities revolved around being at our home. And so I was trying to be in and out. We had lots of kids events with Dane playing baseball and Summer playing soccer out of town. So I would go to kids events and then I'd pop back in. And I would say I got in Friday night thinking I'm going to eat some fried chicken, which I did. But I came in at a heavy moment where there was I walked in the door and there was a lot of tears. And I was like, oh no, I don't know if I should be here, if I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But it was neat to hear. So then I would walk in later and there'd be laughter everywhere, big belly laughs, which was really good to hear as well. And so then, Saturday morning, I got up and I headed to watch Summer play soccer 2 hours away. And the ladies went about what I think was a really cool, I don't want to say field trip, but it was, you guys had a fun day planned that you went out and did.
Yeah, I would say Saturday was kind of our sacred day. So we planned out to go around to the local moms, different spaces that they go to honor their kids. And so we started out and we went to Rockbridge High School here locally because Evan has a tree planted there by the football field in his honor. He was a football player at that high school. And so we all went to Evan's tree first and spent time there looking at his tree. And it's just every mom does something different to honor their kids, but all with the same purpose and intention. And so like Angie, the Nebraska mom, that's how I describe people though, when I'm telling the story, I'm like, I've got this Nebraska mom, I have this London mom, I have 2 Texas moms, but her daughter loved the little red mushrooms. And so she has these tiny little mushrooms. And so when she goes to different places, she leaves these little mushrooms. And Tanya, Evan's mom, has these cards made up. And when they go and travel, they leave cards around. And it's just I just love how creative these moms are and all the different ways that we try to keep our kids' memories alive. And so she left a little mushroom at Evan's tree. So from there, then we went to a local coffee place and we got coffee, energy drinks, and we all hopped back in the car and we drove to Jefferson City to see Harper and Maddie at the cemetery.
And that's about 30 minutes from where we live.
Yeah. Gosh, when we pulled in the cemetery, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is where my cousin and her husband are buried. Quite a few years ago, my first cousin, her and her husband passed away because of a carbon monoxide accident in their home where they had left their minivan running in their garage. And so these 2 kids lost both their parents at once. I mean, just so incredibly sad. And I'd only been to the cemetery one time a long time ago. And when we pulled in, I'm like, I think that that's where they're buried. And so we got there and we met Jessica and Kay there. That's Maddie and Harper's moms. And I'm like, where are they buried? And they literally were buried right down from where Harper is. And gosh, I don't know why I can't get this like vision out of my head, but like Harper has a little sister, but she was only a couple months old when Harper passed. Now this little girl, she's like 3 years old, and she is just taken out running with flowers to go show us where her sister's buried. And gosh, if that doesn't put life into perspective of just how precious life is, and how you have no idea what people are trying to navigate on a day-to-day basis. And just knowing this little girl goes and visits her sister all the time, knowing that she'll never really meet her in this life, at least. But I would say when we went there and we got flowers and we, placed them on their graves, it was like you were celebrating them. We were honoring them by showing up and leaving the little mushrooms and leaving some flowers on their graves. It was just a beautiful moment. I feel like all the moms knew what to do or say, like, because we all understood without saying anything. Nothing had to be said out loud. It was just being there together that it was an honor, honestly, to be able to sit in that space with other moms.
As you guys know from listening, the way that we feel the closest to Hallie and get to honor her is when we go spend time with Phoenix, the horse that she had picked out to be born shortly before she died. And so that's our horse. And we go there. And then Angie took the ladies to go meet Phoenix, which is always a treat.
That was the next stop. I'm like, all right, now we're going to go from a cemetery to my cemetery, which is a long gravel road with lots of bumps and a lot of horses. And you might smell like a horse whenever you leave. That's how we're going to transition into this next stop on our sacred Saturday. And it was funny because she was outside, because also, let me just say, our kids gave us such a gift of beautiful weather, because the weekend before it snowed. And that weekend when everybody was coming together, it was like 70 degrees, 70, 80 degrees. So
which in Missouri, not a guarantee by any means. You could have had more snow.
Yeah. And so she was outdoors in a pen with another horse. And I've never seen her act like this, but she made it very clear that she wanted all the attention and did not want the other horse to get any attention from all of us ladies. And so anytime that other horse would try to come up to her, her ears would pin back and she would kick and chase her off. Like, oh my God, I promise she's actually a sweet horse. But she definitely didn't want the other horse to get any attention from her. She was the boss in that pen. So it was awesome. We also left a little tiny mushroom sitting on the fence post by Phoenix. We laughed a lot. Definitely the car ride was lots of funny conversations. And then we made it back to our house. So then that night we had Chef Craig come in and made this incredible, 6 or 7 course meal for the ladies. And that was awesome, of just all of us gathering around the table. Like, I think it's talked about in the Bible a lot about breaking bread and having a meal with people. And that was the first time that whole weekend that we had all the moms together. It's just so intentional. It was so sacred. And there's just something that happens when you're in a room with people who get it. Like, there's no words to describe it, but you just feel that connection.
Yeah, I was trying to say like downstairs, like, you can eat with us. I was like, no, this is your guys' time. So I was like trying to say downstairs, even outside, we had windows open because it was so nice. So I could hear the women sharing stories. There was lots of laughter and belly laughs like we talked about before. And that, just as someone who was a bystander, made me feel good that these women who I know have grieved so much, they grieved together. I could also share some joy in the weekend. And so it was really good. And of course, whenever you have Chef Craig, we've talked about him before, it's an incredible meal. So I was glad they let me eat. I ate downstairs, but they let me eat.
Yeah, I would say too, there was definitely little signs throughout. When Angie arrived and I, showed her room and her bathroom, she was going to be using Summer's bathroom. And she came out and she was like, oh my gosh, that lotion that Summer has sitting out in her bathroom is the same Bath and Body Works wildflower scent and lotion scent that her daughter Sid loved. And she's like, I buy them up because I don't want to ever not have that scent, because it's the one that she loved. And literally, I'm like, Summer doesn't really use Bath and Body Works very often. And she just put that lotion out. And it was like, okay, hey girls, got it, noted. Like, this is where you're supposed to be. And then when Karen arrived, so Karen was staying in Summer's room. She walks in Summer's room and Summer has this big poster on her wall that says better late than ugly. I mean, I think it's hilarious. But Karen's like, oh my gosh, my granddaughter has that same picture in her room. And I just feel like there's these little connection points that you can call them coincidences if you want. But when you're living in this space where you still feel very connected to your kids, it is definitely feels like, okay, we're here. You guys were meant to cross paths.
Yeah, I just know that a lot of times people will say to us, like, well, it's just a coincidence. But if you've listened to us, you know that we believe in signs and we believe that our children are alive with Jesus. And so I think sometimes they just want to drop in and make sure that we know that they're near, they're well. And so it's really important. And there are a lot of stats that show that like moms getting together like this, they dads too, we need each other. We need to show up for each other for reasons that are more scientific, more stats-based, if that's something that you look for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, bereaved parents are at a significant higher risk of depression, anxiety, and just physical health decline after they lose a child. I mean, I feel that. I know that. I can 100% attest to that, that it doesn't take much to feel depressed, to feel the anxiousness and all of that. And so also research has shown that losing a child can also increase mortality risk in parents, especially in the first few years. But one of the strongest protective factors is connection, to be seen, to be understood, to not feel alone in something that you feel so isolated. And that's really another purpose around this weekend, because the grief truth of all of this is like, there's a saying that grief comes in waves, and I'm going to call complete BS on that it's really the reverse, that grief is constant. It's not that grief comes in waves, it's that joy comes in waves. And so you've got this foundation of heavy grief that will never go away, but you will have some waves of joy. And that makes way more sense to me than the waves of grief. And
you shared that with me in the last 24 hours or so, that was something you guys talked about.
Yeah.
And that made so much sense to me, because I remember Hallie dying and people saying, well, over time, the waves get less and less. But really, they don't get less and less. It's just that you get some waves of joy. And so for you to say that made so much sense. And I think if you're listening and you're going through a season of grief in your life, you'll be able to relate to that the grief stays. But the moments of joy, the waves of joy are what come and go.
Yeah. And I think the weekend was allowing grief and joy to exist at the same time. And I think that's where you walk away with a sense of like, okay, this can definitely fill my cup.
I asked you when it was over, all right, how are you feeling? Did this fill your cup up?
And and I'm like, I'm not even focused on my cup. I'm focused on the moms and making sure that they have what they need and that the weekend is, goes well. And because here's what I have really realized, and we talked about this on Sunday. So on Saturday, we did the sacred day. We had dinner, and then Sunday we got up and we went to church and we went to brunch, and we were at brunch just kind of talking. And the conversation was around your purpose and finding your purpose, and like what moments of gratitude, like what you can be grateful for in the heaviness. And for me, my purpose is finding ways to give the love that I have for Hallie to other people. And I can't do anything for Hallie anymore, even though like I want to help her. I want to make sure she has what she needs and all these things. I can't do that ever again, but I can take that and I can help other women, other grieving moms. And then that's my purpose. I've always been focused on women, but when your child dies, especially in a way that they weren't protected or valued, that little fire I had that was focused around helping women is like a freaking inferno now, to where it's like, I just want to pour what I have into helping other moms. And if that ends up being around grieving moms, then like, so be it.
Yeah, I think these women, getting to meet everybody, I was glad that I got to meet everyone in person. even if a few of them were just for a few minutes. They each have such a different story to tell, and they each try to honor their children so well. And so it was not just for Angie to meet in person, but I think for me, because I've heard so much about these women. And I know that they help Angie with her grief, that she helps them with their grief. And so that meant a lot for me to get a chance to spend a little bit of time with all of them. So I guess my next question to you, knowing you, is what's next? What are you going to do with it now that it's all said and done?
Well, I think we all sort of had withdrawals after we all went home. Everybody went back home, and you kind of just like come off of this high a little bit. When you go back, when you experience that level of connection, it's kind of hard to go back to sort of normal life. In my mind, it's always spinning. I keep thinking about what's next. What do we do next? What does that look like? What's my purpose? What do I keep doing? And for me, I really think the next step for me is to host a retreat that's broader, still my beautiful and broken mamas, but something that's broader. I've had some people reach out to say, hey, the next time you get together, like I'm looking for that connection. I need something like that. And so my mind is like spinning around, what can I do for more moms? Because this matters so much. Connection matters, being seen matters. And no mom should ever have to walk through this kind of loss alone. But like I talk about that so much, and my lens is a grieving mom because that's my space. But like this could be any kind of mom. It could just be a new mom. It could be a single mom. It could be all these different categories of moms. Like everybody is searching for connection and to be seen and heard and to have someone sit with them and whatever their struggle is. Because it's a lonely world. It's a lonely world.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly lonely. And the grief is so real. And the grief, I mean, even just this week, we have friends that are going through a massive grieving scenario through loss of a child. And it just breaks your heart over and over again. And earlier today, I was in Bible study and we were studying Luke chapter 8. Jesus in Luke chapter 8 is when verse 22 through 25, he calms the storm. So he first, right before this, he tells all of his 12 disciples about the sower and the seed. So the parable about you go out and you spread some soil and on the rocky ground, it gets swept away. And then you get through thorns and it kind of chokes the word, but you're looking for that good soil where it'll stick. And as soon as he finishes that, I mean, there's reasoning behind this. He finishes that and then they go out on the Sea of Galilee and he takes a nap and the storm kicks in. And immediately the disciples start to freak out. So Jesus said to his disciples, let us go over to the other side of the lake. So they get in the boat and set out. As they sailed, he falls asleep. A squall comes out of the lake, so the boat's being swamped, and they're in great danger. And the disciples went and woke him, saying, Master, Master, we're going to drown. He got up, rebuked the wind and the raging waters. The storm subsided, all was calm. And he said, where is your faith? He asked his disciples. And in fear and amazement, they asked one another, who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. And the purpose of that, the deeper we got into our grief journey and losing Hallie, what I realize about that story is that we talk so much about faith. And if we didn't have the faith, we wouldn't be able to do this journey. Is that God all along has been with us in this storm. And maybe initially you can be skeptical in the storm that you're in. You can worry. But at the end of the day, if you know that Jesus is in control of the storm, even the really scary, bad, windy parts like they are on the Sea of Galilee, he'll show up. And in this grief weekend that you guys shared, which you're all in these brutal storms, God has been in control, that he's brought you together and said, I'm in control and I'm leading you all to one another and I'm walking with you in the grief. But it's us to turn and look to him and go, even though this is terrible and we're sitting in the suck and we're all hurting, you're hurting with us. I mean, Jesus is a man of sorrows. We've talked about that. And he's sitting with us in the grief, but he's also in control of the storm that we're in. And so maybe if you're in that grief period right now, you can reflect on that and know that he is still in control of your storm. And hopefully that can bring some comfort is what I would like to share, hopefully. So if you're listening to this and you're grieving or you love someone who is grieving, we would just share this with you.
Yeah, that you don't need the perfect words and you don't need to fix it. Just sit with them because sometimes the presence is the most powerful form of love that we have.
That is all we have for today. We are grateful for each and every one of you and know that if you're hurting, We'll hurt with you. We'll sit with you in it. Jesus is sitting with you in it. And hopefully this can help bring you a little bit of comfort. Always reach out. We do love hearing from you and visiting with you and hopefully being able to help some of you. We hope that you have a wonderful week and God bless. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. Lexi and Hal, take it away.
I'm Lexi.
And I'm Hallie.
Have a great week.
Or have the week that you deserve.
That was her.
Yeah, God bless.